to find a mantra to remove darkness and the layers that create the feeling that I'm not enough, does the Guru Brahma mantra work for that? So, mantras are sacred science. They're sacred science. And there's two things that mantras do. The main thing that mantras do, the main point of chanting a mantra, is it connects us to God. That's why we chant a mantra. And it doesn't matter what our religion may be. It doesn't matter what name or form we may use for the divine. Could be a specific name. It doesn't have to be. If you chant Om, for example, nameless, formless, and yet, through connecting you to that fundamental divine sound, it's connecting us to the divine, which is just another way of saying connecting us to God. So the reason that we chant the mantras is it connects us. And therefore, in and of themselves, the chanting of the mantras remove that ignorance. The ignorance of the mind, and when I say ignorance, I don't mean you can't do math properly or, you don't remember what year a particular war happened, or not that type of ignorance. That's just lack of facts or not remembering facts. The ignorance that we talk about on a spiritual level is the ignorance of who we are. That's the core ignorance. And that ignorance is what causes all our suffering. Everything we suffer from is due to that ignorance. And so as the questioner asked, how do I find a mantra to remove the feeling of being not enough? Well, the experience of being not enough is ignorance. The truth as given to us by all of the great spiritual traditions that I know, all of the great mystical traditions that I know, the truth given to us by anyone who doesn't have a particular agenda in you staying dependent on them, or you buying what they're selling, anyone who doesn't have that agenda and is a spiritual, religious, mystic leader is going to give the teachings of your wholeness, of your divinity, because this is what all of the traditions teach. In the Upanishads, we're given mantras that everything in the universe is pervaded by the divine. Isha vasyamidam sarvam. Yat kincha jagatyam jagat. Everything in the universe pervaded by the divine. So whether it's you, whether it's someone you're talking to, divine. The core of who we are is divine, which means that it has the same attributes as the divine does. Wholeness, completeness, fullness, perfection. The problem comes in with the ignorance of the mind that says, I'm this body. This is a recurring theme here on most nights. That ignorance that says, I'm this body. So with mantras, one of the reasons that the mantras are so powerful is that ignorance is reinforced in our psyche by all of our thoughts. So every time I have a thought, chances are that's going to be a thought that reinforces my sense of separation, my sense of not fullness, not wholeness. So whether it's a thought that says, oh wow, I really should do that and then I can make $1 million. Well, nothing wrong with an idea. God has given us creativity and initiative to use it, absolutely. But the drive of, that's how I'm going to get the money that I want, comes from a place of lack. The thought of, oh my God, you're so stupid. I can't believe you said that. You made such a fool out of yourself, comes from an experience of lack. One is a lack of actual money, whether a real lack or a perceived lack. Because sometimes people have plenty, but it's never enough, and so they always want more. Simply having doesn't mean I don't crave more. And sometimes it's a lack of something within myself. You're not smart enough. You're not funny enough. You're not charming enough. You're not vivacious enough. You're not charismatic enough. Sometimes it's something about my body. You're not handsome enough or strong enough or young enough or fair enough or tan enough. Whatever it may be. The thoughts that I have, if you watch them, you'll realize most of them are coming out of that ignorance of separation. So it's something about myself, whether I'm berating myself, whether I'm worried about something in the future. Oh my God, I'm going to fail the exam. Means what? Means you're not smart enough, and means should you fail the exam, you're not worthy enough. That failure of the exam is a mark of your worthiness as a human being. So again, not enough, not whole, not complete. Or it's about another person. I cannot believe he or she did that or said that. Oh my God. What does he think? Doesn't he know who I am? How dare he talk to me like that? Again, simply a thought that separates me from the world. There's him or her over there doing or saying something that injures me over here. We are separate, and now we are at war. Now I'm going to show him. All right. He thinks so much of himself. All right, I'm gonna show him. So again, separation. So the thoughts of our mind, the overwhelming vast majority of them, are thoughts that reinforce separation, that reinforce the smallness of yourself. So one of the most basic and powerful things that a mantra does is simply gets us to stop having those thoughts. You cannot think two things simultaneously. If I'm chanting Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, or whatever I'm chanting, I'm not simultaneously thinking, oh my God, you're such an idiot. Oh my God, you're such an idiot. I can't be doing both simultaneously. If the thought of, oh my God, you're so stupid, comes to my mind, it means I've lost my mantra. As long as the mantra is being chanted, I'm not simultaneously thinking, I'll show him. How dare she? There's actually only one place in our mind for one thought at a time. And so on the most basic level, the mantras treat the problem of that ignorance simply by stopping the pattern that reinforces it. What we know about patterns of thought, whether we call them sanskaras or whether we call them neuronal networks and patterns, is the more you do them, the stronger they get. And the way to break them is to start laying new patterns, new lines, new sanskaras. So even before we get to the meaning of the mantra, simply giving my brain something to do other than reinforce that ignorance is going to help. But then you add in the science of the mantra. You add in the actual spiritual science. Mantras are very specific sounds. And the science of sacred sound was something very, very important to and perfected by the rishis and the sages who gave us these mantras. So it's not just what does it mean. Most of them in some variation mean, oh, I bow to you, and some different form of you. The vast majority of the translations of the different mantras are going to be some variation of, I bow to you, I worship you, and then you, depending on which divine manifestation the mantra is of. So we're surrendering, we're offering ourselves. But what makes the mantra so powerful is not just that meaning, it's the actual sound. But here's what's important. Yes, on some level, mantras can be used for very, very specific things. There are stories in the scriptures of people doing specific sadhana, of specific mantras, for very, very specific boons, you could say, from God. Okay, I've done this mantra for this many years, now you give me that. But that's not what most of us are using mantras for. And it's not even what mantras usually should be used for. As I began, it's about connecting yourself. So it's not about a recipe. It's not about, well, if I do this, if I put this much of this and this much of that, I'm going to get vegetable soup. And if I do this and put that much of that, I'm going to get khichdi. And if I do this and that one, I'm going to end up with saag paneer. It's not about mixing together the ingredients so you end up with the meal you want. It's not a recipe book. Well, really what I'm looking for is this, so maybe I could take some of the Gayatri mantra and mix it with some of this mantra and that mantra. No. What all of them do is bring us closer to God. And as we get closer and closer to God, we have more and more of an experience of God within us. And as we have more and more of an experience of God within us, automatically the experience of being less than or incomplete, it dissipates. You cannot hold God deeply in your heart and still feel not enough. The very presence of God makes you overflow. The very presence of God brings abundance. That is what abundance is. We've gotten distracted into thinking that abundance somehow is about the house I live in, or the boat I own, or the money in my bank account, or the variety of clothing I can purchase. But that's not what real abundance is. Abundance is living in the experience of my cup runneth over. That's what abundance is. And if you have that, regardless of the number in your bank account, regardless of how many pairs of shoes you have, regardless of whether you've ever vacationed on, an island off France or not, it's irrelevant. Absolutely irrelevant. I know lots and lots of people who have all of those things and are living in a personal state of lack. Whether it's lack of the type of relationships they want, whether it's lack of inner peace, lack of inner joy, whatever it may be. All of those things do not actually fill us on the inside. And when you're full on the inside, what the outer world offers or doesn't offer is of much, much less consequence. Because you know it's all within you. Think for a moment, anybody here ever camp in a tent in a sleeping bag? Raise your hand if you've ever spent a night in a tent or a sleeping bag. Okay. The rest of you, I seriously recommend it. Anybody who has not, not like in the middle of your street, go to the woods, sleep in the trees. But I mention it here because sleeping in a sleeping bag and in a tent is so joyful on a very, very deep level compared, for example, to being homeless, which is not very joyful. Going camping in the woods is joyful because I know I have a house to go back to. If I were homeless, sleeping in a sleeping bag would not be nearly as much fun as sleeping in a sleeping bag on a camping adventure. Because I know I've got all that. That's all mine. I don't need it in this moment. Simply the awareness that it exists is enough. I could be hundreds of miles away from it. Very, very content in my sleeping bag and tent with, a bag full of granola and, maybe some rice to last me many days. Really content, personally, blissful. Because I know it's all there. If in the middle of your camping expedition you got a memo that said, by the way, your house has burned down, you're now homeless, the tent wouldn't look so good. And I mention this example because when you are connected to God, you are so full that it's all there. It's all there. It's all available. It's all mine. I don't need it in this moment. And then this moment becomes next moment, becomes the next moment, becomes the next moment. I don't need to hold on to it now, or have it in my possession now, or use it now. Because I know, it's there. I've got everything. It's all mine. And that's the experience of being connected to God. And I don't mean it's all mine as in all the money of the world is mine. That stops being what's important. But all of the joy that I thought I was going to get from the money, it's all mine. All of the peace that I thought I would get from that job or this job, it's all mine. It's with me inside. I don't need to keep seeing it, keep experiencing it in this way, that way. Because I have it. And so whatever way you can connect with God, whether it's the Guru Brahma mantra as the questioner asked, whether it's Om Namah Shivaya, whether it's the Gayatri mantra, whether it's any of hundreds of mantras in this tradition, and probably thousands when we open it up to all of the world's traditions. Doesn't matter what the mantra is. Every one of them, if used properly, will bring you into an experience of abundance, will take you out of the experience of lack, of being not enough. Because you're going to pull away from that ignorance. You're going to pull away from the identification with whoever it was who told you at some time in your early life that you weren't enough. Because that's how we've come to believe it. Kids think they're enough. Babies think they're enough. Babies don't have complexes. Do I really deserve the breast? I mean, you don't see a baby sit there and weigh, should I cry? Should I not cry? Oh my God, what is she going to think about me? Maybe, God, she's going to think I really, I'm too much trouble. That stuff doesn't start till we're much older. What the baby knows is, I'm hungry, give me some food. I deserve it right now, right here. Sorry if you were sleeping. Sorry if you're on the phone. Sorry you're busy, but not really sorry because I'm hungry. Feed me. It's the epitome of divine entitlement. You are my mother. Feed me. Now. So we go from that experience of knowing I deserve all of it. All the time. To somehow deciding that I don't deserve very much of it. Certainly not if I show people who I really am. Certainly not if I'm honest. I've got to put on a show, perform like this, do that, act like this. Then maybe I'll deserve a little something. So somewhere along the way, we got really brainwashed. And that spiritual journey is back to that divine entitlement. You are my mother. Feed me. Yeah, now. Right now. With a knowledge and an awareness that, yeah, right now, you're going to be fed. Because that's what the mother does. And in the same way that the physical human mother, regardless of whether she's sleeping, regardless of whether she's on the phone, when the baby cries, what does she do? She feeds it. Well, in the same way, God, the divine mother or the divine father, however you think of God, is there. All the time, in us, as us, so that supply of nourishment is constant. And the more mantra japa I do, and of course the more meditation I do, and of course the more spiritual practice I do of any sort, I'm going to get closer and closer and closer to that experience of inner abundance. And yeah, I'm whole and I'm full and I deserve it all, I'm entitled to it all because you are my mother. And you are everything. And that everythingness is in me. So whether it's mantras, whether it's a specific mantra, whether it's meditation, whatever practice works for you to connect you to God, that's the right